Hey, how's it going, bros? My name is Gloria Borga, and as most of you probably know, the holy war between T-Series and PewDiePie has never been as hot as it is now, and if anyone needs our help right now more than anyone, it's PewDiePie. And so I thought I would do my part, and today we're going to make a ring that is styled after his red and black kind of Pewdie swirl logo thingy that he does, and we're going to integrate an NFC chip into it that'll subscribe you to PewDiePie and unsubscribe you from T-Series. So the whole goal here is just to streamline the process. When you're doing the Lord's work, when you're out there fighting the good fight, you can just walk up to someone's phone, tap your ring to it, it'll unsubscribe them from T-Series, subscribe them to PewDiePie. Should be fantastic. And now the ring itself, I'm going to be making it out of micarta. If you don't know what that is, essentially you just take fabric, this is black fabric, this is red fabric, and you mix it in with resin. So I've got a bunch of resin here, and the way we're going to do it, I'm trying to get the PewDiePie swirl logo effect. And so I think the best way to go about it, I've got two different methods I'm gonna try. One in the PVC pipe, and then one in this mold. And essentially, I'm just going to take both of these, wad them up, and I'm gonna obviously use a lot more fabric than this, but I'll wad it all up. I'll try to get it swirled together so that they blend nicely and look a lot like the logo. And then I will cover it in this plate. And you can see it's perforated. We'll add resin to it. It'll infiltrate and soak into the fabric. And then we'll just crush it down so it's compact, there's no air bubbles. And then once it hardens, we should be able to pull out a slab of our micarta fabric. And once we cut into it, the goal is that it will resemble PewDiePie's swirl logo. And then the same thing goes for the PVC pipe method. It's just gonna be, I'm gonna try two different methods and see which gives us the best looking patterns. So I'll just take our fabric, stuff it in here. I'll use this piece of metal to cram it in there. And for both of the molds, I'll be using a clamp on this one. Put the fabric in, put the plate on top, clamp it shut. That way we'll get rid of all of the air bubbles and there won't be any resin patches or anything like that. And then same thing goes for this one. I might have to trim this pipe down a little bit, but basically I'll just clamp this on one end and then just screw this down tight. So we should end up with a pretty nice looking ring. I was wondering about integrating glow powder into it, but I think I'll keep it simple for this video. We'll make the ring, hopefully it resembles his logo as much as possible, and then we'll add the NFC chip in. It'll be hidden so you won't even be able to notice it, and we'll just spread that good word like I said. So let's go ahead and get started. So for my first step, I obviously need to cut up the fabric, so I'm doing that now, just cutting it into strips. I've got the black fabric and then the red, and then I'm doing a mock fit in the mold. I want to see how it's all going to fit together, and I wanted to kind of strategize how I was going to get the fabric to look swirled once I cut into it. And so you can see I just roll the two together, and then every couple of layers I throw a layer of the red and then the black on over the whole thing, and then just repeat. I'm just trying to get something that will give me kind of a crazy swirled pattern, and so there's not a lot of science to it, just a lot of experimentation. And one thing that I didn't show it on camera because I didn't want to bore you guys, but I actually spent a week trying to perfect the pattern and figure out the best way to crumple the fabric in order to get it to closely resemble that logo. So the material I use is actually a couple of iterations past what you see me making in the video, but the concepts are all the same. I just take this resin, and the first thing I need to do it after I mix in the catalyst is what makes it harden. I take it and I put it in my vacuum chamber, and that gets rid of any of the bubbles that are within the resin itself. And then after that, I'm able to completely soak all of the fabric in that resin, and then I put it in the mold. And the reason I'm doing all the vacuum chamber stuff is because I'm trying to remove as many bubbles as possible. It might not be obvious, but if you've ever tried making micarta before, bubbles are like your worst enemy. It's really difficult to get them out, and they just get in places where you'd never even imagine. And so that's why you need to use so much pressure. That's why you need to use the vacuum chamber, all of that. It's to get rid of any of those bubbles, because that can totally ruin your ring or anything else you're trying to make out of micarta. So now I have the resin and the fabric combined inside the PVC pipe, and then I'm taking this clamp here and I'm compressing the whole thing. And what this is doing is it's compressing all of that fabric and it's squeezing out any of the excess resin. Like I said, we only want the resin in there to hold everything together. We don't actually want clear spots in our final product. That's going to make sure that the final product is as close as possible to a solid block of fabric with a minimal amount of resin. Now I'm going to repeat all of those steps, but this time with the square-shaped mold. So I degas the resin in the vacuum chamber, then I soak the fabric in it, I place it in the mold, and then I put that perforated top on top of it, obviously, and then I screw on all of these clamps, and I just compress it as hard as I can. And you can see just how much resin it removes from it. There's just a ton at the top that I can then pour in a waste cup. And again, it's just because we're trying to get rid of as much resin as possible. And for the final step, you guessed it, we're throwing it into the vacuum chamber for a second time. And it's going to be for the same exact reason again. We're just trying to get rid of every single bubble that we can because we don't want any of them. Now it's time to demold the pieces, and then I'll cut into them with a saw, and I'll get a nice preview of what the pattern's going to look like. And this is honestly one of the funnest parts of the project. It's pretty early in, but you get a really good look of that pattern that you've worked so hard to try to get. So obviously I pry all of the micarta out of the mold, and then I switch over to the miter saw, and this is when I cut some of the chunks up, and I can get a really nice preview of what the cross section will look like. And you can see we did get some really nice swirls in it, and I was actually impressed with the way the first attempt turned out. But I think you'll agree, what I end up using is actually much better material. It was, like I said earlier, a couple iterations after this first one, and I was able to get a much tighter swirl to it. And that's really important for a ring where it's so small. That way we still get a lot of the pattern showing up even though it's in such a small space. So now I've got the material made for our ring, it's time to get on to the actual ring making itself. So I'm starting out on my drill press here, I've got a hole saw fit into it, and I'm cutting out the inner diameter for the ring, and then I use a larger hole saw to cut out the outer diameter. Now we have a really good preview of what the pattern is going to look like, and you can see for yourself the pattern turned out really nicely. I think it genuinely matches PewDiePie's red and black swirl pretty closely. Now I'm going to cut out a piece of this material I've got here. You can see it's got carbon fiber on the top and the bottom, and then in the middle it's this red fiberglass color, and it's infused with this glow powder, so it's a really interesting looking material. And if you're wondering what the heck it's for, sorry to just throw it in on you. I thought it would be good to conceal the NFC chip that we put on it and not just glue it in there. I think it would look a little bit clunky, and so you'll see the way I integrate it. I'm going to use the red part of the material for the inside of the ring. That'll match the ring, I think, pretty well, and then I'll be able to cut a little trough in it, and that I can place the NFC chip in, and that'll completely conceal the NFC chip in the ring. That way an unsuspecting T-Series subscriber won't even get suspicious when you approach them with the ring. And if at this point you're a little bit confused as to how all of the pieces are going to fit together, just watch the video. I could explain it, but it really is self-explanatory. You'll see how I machine both of the pieces to fit together, and then I machine a little groove into the fiberglass section of the ring, and that's to fit the NFC chip into. So now I have the groove cut into the inner fiberglass piece, and it was fairly simple. The NFC chip itself is only about a 0.5 millimeter thick, so it was just a shallow little groove, and then I was able to glue it in place, and the chip itself is flexible, so very straightforward. I just glue it in place, and then any of the excess glue on there, I was able to trim that down to get the whole thing flush again, and then I glued both of the pieces together, so I glued the inner fiberglass to the outer PewDiePie patterned piece. So now I've got everything put together. We really are in the home stretch now. So I just need to, at this point, trim everything down, do some sanding and polishing, as well as just some finishing touches to it. But then this thing will be finished, and I'm really excited to show you how it works. We put a lot of work into the actual programming of it. We had to figure out a couple of clever tricks to figure out how to get it to redirect twice, but we got it to work, and I think you'll really like what we were able to get this thing to do, so make sure to stick around for the end. So here's the ring, guys, and I'm honestly really happy with the way that the pattern turned out. From the beginning with this project, this was the thing that I was most concerned about, because if you think about it, I'm starting with a bunch of fabric that I have to cover in resin and then smash into a mold, and then after that I have to cut a ring shape out of it, sand it and polish it, and have it resemble PewDiePie's swirl pattern, and that's just so many steps to get right. And in the end, I think it does look really nice, so I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And then the inside, the fact that it glows, I think that's cool as well. So you can see under this UV light especially, it just really brings out that color. And so overall, it's a really fun and interesting looking ring that I genuinely like the look of. And then I just thought the hidden functionality of it was so funny. We were able to program it so that when you tap it to your phone, it'll take you to T-Series homepage on YouTube and prompt an unsubscribe. And then you can obviously confirm that, and then shortly thereafter it'll redirect you to PewDiePie where you can subscribe. So I just thought that was so clever and just the perfect functionality for the PewDiePie ring. But if you thought the video was over, you are sorely mistaken. I've got one more secret announcement, and it's that we're doing a charity raffle for this ring, and I thought this would be a perfect fit for it. What we're going to do, we'll have a raffle for it. There's going to be a link in the description that will explain everything more in detail, but we're going to be donating 100% of the proceeds to charity. So this is just something I wanted to do because it's a great cause, but more importantly I think is because I wanted to integrate the number $3.99 into this video. I think it's important to make that distinction and to set our priorities straight. So, of course, you can get one entry for 99 cents, but if you want to get 5 entries, it's just $3.99.